It just occurred to me that I think I have a pretty good understanding of what James meant when he said there's all these people running around thinking to escape Babylon, they're going to run out in the woods and start another Babylon. Because like the United States Constitution, the United States Constitution either enabled and empowered the world we live in to come into existence, or it was powerless to prevent it. Either way, it's unfit. Likewise, with the doctrine and the traditions and the behavior and the principles and the priorities and the standards of the institutions of the church and the followers. They either enabled this world that we live in to come into existence, or were unable and powerless to prevent it. Either way, they're unfit. And the traditional Christians will say, oh no, they weren't supposed to be able to prevent it. It was meant to turn to shit. That's part of the prophecy, and that shows that the book and the tradition and the doctrine and the church and the institution's all true, because they told us it was all going to turn to shit. The same people that are currently turning it to shit. How many churches do you know that didn't just fold? That didn't stand up and say, nah, this is what we came to do. It's time to handle business. None of them. None of them. Just like, I got a lot of different thoughts. The Catholic pedophile priests. Oh, those aren't Christians. They are the biggest Christian religion on the planet. Well, that's just in the Catholic Church. That's not in our church. What did your church do to stop it or separate themselves from it? Nothing. Likewise with everything that's going on now. So, to run out into the woods and start your own church and triple down on the programming manual of the current power structure that they use to bring this world into existence is going to create another Babylon. Oh, no, but the church is to help us get out of Babylon. The church is what created Babylon. If you can't see that the current institutions are the anti-Christ while presenting themselves as the promoters and progenitors of Christ, then you're blind. Just like Antifa, well, it says anti-fascist right in their name. But if you look at the fruits of their labor, their function, their principles, they are the most fascist thing you've ever seen. But it says anti-fascist right there in their name. They must be an anti-fascist movement. Just like Christmas, promoted by all these Christian churches, says Christ right there in the name, Christ Mass. But if you look at it with an open mind for 2 seconds, you can see what it is. The most anti-Christ thing that's ever existed. 2 Christ figures celebrated on the same day. The one is a cartoon Jesus for the kids, and the other one's the real one. And the kids invest all their hopes and dreams in the cartoon Christ, and then they're told, nah, you didn't get any of those presents because you're a good kid. Santa ain't even real. Christ is. It breaks their heart, hardens their heart, and guarantees they'll never, ever fall for it again. This guy in the sky that knows when you're sleeping, knows when you're awake, and wants you to be good for goodness sake. It doesn't take a degree in theology or psychology to see that. That's 2 + 2. And if you can't do that math, and you're like, well, I'm not qualified to think for myself and see how fucking obvious that is. It's just like, forgot what the other thing had going in my head for a second. Give me a sec. So everything from Black Lives Matter to the feminist movement, to the anti-fascist movement, to the anti-capitalista movement of Occupy Wall Street. The Occupy Wall Street was created by the capitalists of Wall Street. The anti-fascists are the most fascist thing you've ever seen. These people that call themselves the resistance, right? The resistance, those anti-fascist types, have on their side all the largest corporations and governments and even churches in the world, yet still consider themselves the resistance? They're gonna make a new world, a better place? What do they think all these giant corporations and government institutions just suddenly saw the light and can see that they're right about their libtard ideology, or that they're using them as a tool? The lost Gospels were not lost. Or once they were found, they would have been reincorporated into the canonized doctrine of the Bible. But the 75% of the Bible that was left out, those lost Gospels that were found in the 70s, have not been reincorporated in to the Bible and the biblical text in the last 50 years. That means the institutions of the church didn't lose them, or once they found them, they'd say, oh, thanks, sweet, we got the rest of the story here. They already had the rest of the story. That little, the Dead Sea Scrolls, that was just a copy they forgot to burn. Because once it was found, if it was truly lost, they would have reincorporated it. They don't want their churchgoers to know anything about it or have anything to do with it, because it contradicts and rewrites that little sliver of the Bible that they allowed you to have when you read the rest of the text that went with it. And you can see where they've edited it and changed it when you read the rest of the text that goes with it. So to cling to that little sliver of a shred of information that they programmed you with and spoon-fed you, which is what created this world to begin with, is just going to recreate it out in the woods when you go start your own church. Oh no, the problem is that we didn't cling hard enough to it. We didn't conform enough to the programming manual of the BioBot transceivers. It's easier to fool someone than to convince them that they have been fooled. That is the struggle we're all going through right now. Whether it's, I believe in America, land of the free, home of the brave. We're out there spreading freedom and liberty at the barrel of a gun, fighting the terrorists that someone packed into Syria with brand new Toyota trucks and white Nikes and black jumpsuits and 7-foot-tall GMO soldiers. Yeah, we're out there fighting those terrorists. No, we're not the one that imported them, like the Syrian ambassador said twice on the floor of the United Nations. No, he's full of shit. We're actually over there fighting those terrorists and employing the moderates, the Syrian moderate opposition to the terrorist Assad. We got to take down that dictator to free these poor people of Syria from this tyrant that's controlling them. Yeah, we're over there fighting the tyrant using the local terrorists. No, they're not terrorists. They're moderate rebels. John McCain said so. He said these are good people. We should go fund them, arm them, and train them, and we did. We openly and admittedly funded, armed, and trained the terrorists while pretending to fight a war on terror. Anyone who still believes in that is gone. And if you can see that as clearly as it is, you can also see that which you've so highly invested in this doctrine and dogma of the mind control government. Government and religion are the same thing. Your belief in the government is what got people to go take the vax. They worship America, America, red, white, and blue. Religion was the original form of government. Government that claims to have a separation of church and state is obviously like this with the church. Or during this whole thing, one of those churches would have stood up and said, no, you guys, this is the time that we've been preparing for. This is what we said we came to do. Not a single one of them. But you're going to still take that doctrine out into the woods and start up another one? That's what James meant by you can't just run out in the woods to escape Babylon and start another Babylon. And by taking that Bible out there and reading it real hard and saying we're really going to adhere to this and conform to this and believe in this and live our lives by this, when that's what created this world, is the institutions that said they were going to do that and all the good Bible-believing people that said that they were doing that, this is what it led to. Like the United States Constitution. It either enabled and empowered this world that we live in to come to be, or it was powerless to prevent it. Either way, it's unfit. And again, the circular thinking, it's just like, I know the Bible's true because it's the Word of God, and I know it's the Word of God because it says so in the Bible. Circular thinking, self-reinforcing logic. It said so right in the Bible that this whole world was going to turn to shit and then we were going to be enslaved, and that's how you know the Bible's true. And that's how you know that the people telling us that are the good guys, while they stand by and turn this world to shit. And if you can't see that, I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. It's a will and a desire to seek and know and be in alignment with truth in your principles, priorities, and your behaviors. And if you can't tell the difference between a book that was written by men and truth, a book that was written by men that you call the Word of God, written by that cross-dresser King James, I have no dog in this fight. I was lucky enough that, see, my parents, they joined the Church of Red, White, and Blue, and they're generally a conformist to consensus reality, conventional wisdom. Whatever the general population around me is doing, that's what I'm going to do. But they were smart enough to keep me out of a religion, so I wasn't indoctrinated from birth. And before I even found out what religion is, I'm told, no, you've been part of this religion your whole life. Oh, really? Oh, great. Invest everything I am, everything I know, everything I do in this. And I feel bad for those people that have done that the whole time, because now they got to flip the script and recognize that everything they thought they knew needs to go right out the window. Instead, some people are clinging to it and thinking if they just triple down on it, they just didn't do it enough. Like communists saying socialism and communism turned to shit all around the world. We just didn't do it enough. We just need full communism worldwide, and then it'll be a utopia. Yeah. We just need to read our Bibles even more and conform to the tenets and traditions and dictates of this religion even more. And then we'll have utopia. Let me help you with a little bridge to help you get from here to over there. That maybe once the people's heart was in the right place and it was a great movement and it would have created utopia, but since then that movement got subverted and hijacked and co-opted by people who have the exact opposite agenda, which is exactly what happens with Occupy Wall Street, created by the banksters, the feminist movement, created by males. Adam Weishaupt, founding member of the Bavarian Illuminati. I've read that before, how he said all we have to do is appeal to their sense of emancipation and get ourselves into their good graces, and there's no way to influence men more so than through the way of the women. So we need to get our way into the women's good graces and tell them we're going to liberate you. You're a slave. He's enslaving you. Yeah. That was created by men to manipulate and use and control women in order to get to and control and manipulate other men. Likewise, with the current churches, a movement, anytime there is a movement building, they create a faux, counterfeit movement that's identical to it that you can't tell the difference from, get their people in the leadership positions of that movement, and then lead it off the runway and into the ditch before that thing gets airborne. That's why they create these movements like Black Lives Matter by people who don't give a shit about black people. The feminist movement, using women as tools. The antifascista, anticapitalista, Occupy Wall Street, made by the bankers to run that movement right in the ditch before it gets to the point where we can't control it anymore. Anti-fascist? We got the fucking brown shirts of Nazi Germany running around here thumping people in the head with professors from universities out there swinging bike locks, hitting people in the head. That's one that we caught out there in a black mask with the rest of the black bloc of Antifa, swinging a bike lock, hitting people in the head with it. A university professor. And these guys think they're the resistance that's going to change the world, when it's the universities and the governments and the corporations that are funding, arming, and training them and promoting their movement. And you think you're somehow going to change the world? It's the worst institutions and the worst influences on the world that are supporting you and promoting your movement, yet you think you're the resistance? Now look at the Catholic Church and the Christian churches again and tell me again how you think this is working out for you, sticking to that Bible and those traditions and those people. I see the most corrupt institutions on the planet here in these churches. As I've shown you with the Santa PSYOP alone, there are quite a few other things I could show and tell, but that alone should be the icebreaker for your consciousness, bringing you above 32 degrees of frozenness up to the 33rd. If you can't fracture your own consciousness with that and see how simple and straightforward that is, you're gone, man. The good news is, we're waking up, because this whole time, no one could see the Santa psyop for what it was. And now that I can see it, I haven't heard a single person say anything to the contrary. Because it's plain as day. 2 Christ figures. The one that you're about to tell the kid is fake, you make sure they celebrate that one. That one's for them, and they look forward to it every year, and they invest all their hopes and dreams into it until you tell them, sorry, pal, that was fake, and we lied to you. Oh, but Jesus, he's still real. Yeah, go ahead and worship some Jesus. And it hardens their heart, and it is the most anti-Christ thing. It co-opts the movement, leads it off the runway, and each individual who got that Santa psyop played on them every year during their childhood is guaranteed not to get on the Christ plane and get airborne. Somehow, some did. But it's not the ones that cling to the doctrine and the dogma and the traditions of that institution that perpetuate that anti-Christ psychological operation every year. I'm not the first one to figure it out. Just like the lost gospels, that wasn't lost on them. They knew damn well those gospels existed, or they would have reincorporated them into the Bible by now. It's not lost on them that Christmas, but it says Christ right in it. Yeah, so does Antifa. Say anti-fascist right in it. It's not lost on these institutions what that does to the child as those children grow up into adults, what that does to the society. Makes sure they don't find Christ. And if you can't see how simple and straightforward that is, if you can see how simple and straightforward that is, the question then becomes, why haven't any of these churches mentioned it? Why isn't there a coalition of Christians against Christmas who recognize, this is defeating our own purposes here? We're undermining our own efforts? And once you see it how clearly it is, it's not just, oops, we messed up. Maybe we're kind of not going about it the right way. Whoever's running this operation is running the exact opposite direction of what you think they are. Once you see how clearly it is, it's as obvious and plain as day that on 98, 99% of the people, it works. Combine that with the doublethink and the cognitive dissonance of someone who got the Santa psyop ran on them as a kid and then had their hopes and dreams shattered, but then keep getting offered the Bible and they sucked it up. They said, okay, I'll invest in this. Even though you fooled me here, I'll invest in it. You're not tricking me this time, right? Okay, I'll invest in this now. And they invest as an adult all their hopes and dreams in this one. And when you've invested yourself in something, you continue to invest in it because you don't want to lose your seed money. So you invest more. Well, I spent 10 years in this religion. I don't want to lose the last 10 years and have to start over. Might as well stick with it. I've said before, the Santa Claus version of Christ is all you need to know. Everything else is details appealing to the left brain that will lock you into or out of the spirit. There is a guy in the sky who knows when you're sleeping and knows when you're awake and wants you to be good just for goodness sake, but no one's gonna buy that shit after they got fooled as a kid. You kidding me? And I can see how glaringly obvious that is, and it just occurred to me less than a year ago. And I'm kind of at the leading edge of this. I'm kind of one of the sharper tools in the sheds, yet I didn't even see it. It still slipped past me. But now that I do see it, how the fuck did I not see it all those years? How obvious is that? And the biggest reason people don't see it is because they've invested in it and they don't want to lose their seed money. And it's not the dogma and the institutions that's really going to hurt for them to let go of, because they can see how corrupt that shit's gotten. It's the other people in the church that also still believe. Yeah, I can abandon those institutions. I can see how full of shit they are. And the doctrine, yeah, it's been edited and tailored, and half of it's missing. And now that the other half showed up, they're still not incorporating that into the text. So yeah, I can abandon the doctrine. I can see how corrupt the institution is. But what about my neighbors? They're still in it. They all still go, and they still believe, and we all still, that's the tie that binds between me and my neighbors. It's not about, well, like David Icke says, when someone's thinking, shall I, shan't I, exit the hassle-free zone and start thinking for myself, they don't think, well, what's the president of the United States going to think of me? Or what's the Queen of England going to think of me? It's, what's my neighbors going to think and say? So likewise for the average Christian, it's not the institution of the church. No, they're okay with letting that go. Along with the doctrine and the dogma. It's, what will my neighbors think of me? And I don't want to lose my relationship with them. And my relationship is based on this common belief, which is the tie that binds. And unless you can loosen yourself from that tie that binds, you'll stay in bondage. And so now is a good time to segue to, if you can see that the church, the institutions of the church, are actually running anti-Christ psychological warfare operations on the people and have been for your entire life, including everybody you know, and you can see it for what it is now, an anti-Christ psychological operation. That means the Antichrist isn't coming, the Antichrist is here and been well entrenched for a long time. And once you come to that acceptance, you can start to contemplate maybe everything they told me was backwards. The good guy is the bad guy and the bad guy is the good guy. And that's not hard to imagine once you can see how clearly they're the exact opposite of what they proclaim themselves to be. Hence my last video upload, showing you that there's some people that aren't scared to contemplate whether or not the Freemasons are really evil, because we all know they're fucking evil, right? Yeah, we know. Likewise with Lucifer and Satan and the whole story you were told, now that you can see that it is a faux, F-A-U-X, fake Christian movement to keep you from finding Christ, just like all the other fake movements I've just described, for the same reason, same dynamic, same operation, same outcome, same input, same reasoning. Once you can see that this is an anti-Christ institution, you can take that Bible and you can find the truth by following all the road signs backwards. And that's why they say, oh, Satanists and Luciferians follow the Bible, they read the Bible backwards. It's like Roadrunner and Coyote. Coyote's trying to catch the Roadrunner, so he runs up and he takes the road sign that says north this way and he points it that way. You follow the signs backwards, you can see where they tricked you and fooled you and inverted things. And with that, I should just reiterate, I'm sure most of you have already heard me say this, but my spiritual awakening of 2 years ago, but I've been a spiritually seeking and truth-seeking person my whole life. By the way, the Spirit of Christ is the Spirit of truth. So if you've been a truther, you've been a Christer. But a couple of years ago, when I saw that Syrian ambassador came out on the floor of the United Nations twice and said that genetically modified Syrian moderate opposition forces, by definition, genetically modified GMO soldiers that we sent over to Syria, and he came out on the floor of the UN twice and said that. I've also seen videos of these Nephilim, link will be in the description, in our own military. And when I saw that, I had a tear-drenched, heartfelt prayer to Jesus Christ unlike anything I've ever had. And my life was changed that night. My parents remember, it was that night that I showed them the Nephilim and the next day that I showed them my implant. They weren't there for the tear-drenched, heartfelt prayer to Jesus Christ where I asked for the Nineveh reprieve, that we might not be held accountable for all that's been done in our name. And if you might be able to apply the same prayer to the church institutions and all that they've done in the name of promoting Jesus Christ and all the kids they've been raping in the Catholic Church, that isn't a theory. Like James says, you got a lot of people who'd rather believe in these baby raping pedophiles, Illuminati Satanists than face reality, because it's a lot easier to have the bad guy over there to make me the good guy. Makes it real easy. I can just be lazy and point the bad guy. But those thousands of people that came out that were 15 years old to 75 and 80 years old saying, yeah, my pastor raped me too. Yep, it was the Me Too movement of the Catholic Church. That was not a fake psyop. Those are real people. And after thousands have come out and nothing happened to the church, if you're number 33,333, what's one more gonna make a difference? So guaranteed there's thousands and thousands and thousands of more people out there with the same Me Too story about that Catholic Church that decided, well, when there's already this many people that have come out of the closet, me coming out to tell my story isn't going to change the course of history here. So there's a lot of people that watched that disclosure movement happen and sat on the sidelines So if you can see that the prayer, if you can have a prayer like what I did regarding the United States, which a lot of people worship like God, that in Sam I Am's video, he said, God is not the United States, God is not Israel, God is not a Christian, God is spirit and truth. But for a lot of people, those things are all synonymous. They may not say they worship the United States, but in action and in deed, they do. But my prayer was this institution of the United States that's done all this in our name, that we might not be held accountable and have to bear the responsibility and own the decisions and the choices that they've done in our name, in order that we might have the Nineveh reprieve, recognize the error of our ways and the truth in the Bible. The same prayer could be asked of God regarding the other institution of the church. So you can either tie your boat to the church and triple down on that doctrine and dogma that they pumped you full of and spoon-fed you from birth, or you can recognize the errors in their ways and in our ways for not thinking for ourselves earlier. How come I didn't see the Santa Psyop earlier? I'm smart enough to see that. Yet something blinded me. Because once you do see it, it is so simple that I can't believe I didn't see it until now. But because I have no dog in this fight, because I was lucky enough that my parents recognized that, I think I want to keep my freedom and my free will. You say God gave me free will, right? Yeah, okay, then I think I'm going to keep that rather than handing it over to you. With the church, right? I'm not going to give you my kids to indoctrinate. I'm going to let them keep their free will and go live their lives as they will. But my parents did worship at the altar of national security, sacrificing myself and my sister on that altar as a loyalty oath and a pledge of allegiance. And so many people do the same exact thing with the church. They sacrifice their child on that altar to the church as a loyalty oath and a pledge of allegiance. Here, I'll let you baptize my child and indoctrinate them, and by the time they're old enough to know what a religion is, they'll have already been in a religion for their whole life, and they won't have a way out. I'll just sign them on rather than letting them choose for themselves and live their lives and find Christ in their own way. I'll hand them over to you. There you go. So as I sit here sounding like I am, I absolutely am undermining the institution of, the Christian church. It was a prayer to Jesus Christ that changed my life. And ever since, I've been shown a lot, most of which runs very contrary to the traditions and doctrines of the church. But it doesn't take my experience, man. The Santa Psyop alone should be enough to allow a person to see that that institution is the exact opposite of what they proclaim to be. And once you can see that, you can set yourself free. You can feel differently. You cannot be as hesitant about, oh, am I making the right decision? Am I making the wrong decision? Should I abandon this ship that they've got me tied to? When you can see it like that, there is no choice. You have no choice. Once you've seen that truth, if you continue to tie your boat to them, you're going down with that ship, and you deserve to. Because like I said, it was that institution that allowed this world to come to be, or was powerless to prevent it. Either way, it's unfit. And their followers. If their followers cannot see this simple truth that it's time to reassess and have an identity crisis, a collective identity crisis is a paradigm shift. We are going through a paradigm shift, but not everyone's going to come with. A lot of people are going to triple down on the doctrine and dogma that they've been programmed with, think that they're going to create a utopia. Like the saying says, a problem cannot be solved with the same consciousness that it was created by. This problem of the world was created by the consciousness of those institutions of the church and their followers. And if by this point their followers can't see, we've been misled, we got fooled, then be gone with them, because they're part of the problem. If they won't think for themselves, and I know what James True means when he says it's not immoral to take what someone else is throwing away. You don't want your freedom? I'll take it. Sure, if you're going to throw it away, I'll take it. He says it's not immoral to adopt a cat that's been thrown in the garbage and take something that someone else is not going to use and that they're just throwing it away anyway. If you don't want your freedom, I'll take it, and I'll apply your freedom to my morality, to my plan of morality. I will apply your labors and the fruits of your labors to my plan. Just like someone who doesn't want to start a business, they just want to go to work for someone else, do their daily deal, get their daily bread, and go home. They are committing their labor to that guy's plan because they don't want to start their own plan and do their own thing. Same thing, as above, so below. You don't want to be the author of your own authority? I'll be your authority. You don't want your freedom? I'll take your freedom. You don't want to decide for yourself what to do? I'll tell you what to do. You don't want to be free? I'll tell you what to build. Man is the living soil. We are the living bridge between the world that once was and the world that is coming. And the way that we are the living bridge is through our consciousness and helping this paradigm shift happen. Man is the living soil within which consciousness is cultivated. That material that you put your seeds in, soil, that's us. The seeds that have been put into us are consciousness. This is not a human farm. This is a consciousness farm, and these human bodies are the vessels that the consciousness is being cultivated within. That is how man is the living soil, and we are the living bridge between the world that once was and the world that will be. And it's happening so fast, a lot of people are being taken by surprise. If they had a little bit longer to contemplate it, they would probably have a higher percentage of turnover rate that would come along with. And that's why so much effort is being gone to conceal what time it is. Those signs and wonders in the heavens to keep you, as the lady from Final Day says, from knowing just how close we are to that final day of the return of Christ. If people had a little bit longer to think about it, but when they, in the last moment, when they realize, they are going to clutch to that thing that they already know because it's comfortable. Tried and true. New and different, that's scary. Tried and true. I'm going to just hang on to this. Lose your fear of the Illuminati, the Freemasons, the devil, Satan, because that fear is the fuel that they use. If you can learn to love the devil, it pulls the rug right out from under him and he's powerless over you. It is your fear. How many times in the Bible does it say, fear not, fear is not of God? Yet you have all these Catholic churches and Christian churches saying we're good God-fearing people. That's doublethink and cognitive dissonance. And I can name a bunch of other instances, but time is running short on this video. Jesus was the only true, pure, perfect person, and you could never be anything like Jesus. Don't even dare compare yourself to Jesus. Though he did say we will all do everything he did and then some. and more. Jesus is the only begotten Son of God. But we're all God's children, yeah. There's other doublethink, but if that Santa psyop isn't enough for you to realize, oh, that is simple 2 + 2 math. They should have seen that, shouldn't they? Absolutely. I'm not the first one to figure that out. So who's the Antichrist, me or the church? Because you're going to have to choose, because there is a lot more people like me that are seeing this truth for as simple and straightforward as it is. So you're either going to have to go with them, or take a chance with us and meet me on the back of the blue bus, or it hurts